Me habían dicho que hablara de preferencia en inglés, entonces preparé mis notas en inglés, mi presentación está en español. Si empiezo a meter Spanglish, por favor, alguien deténgame. Hola. Ya está ahí, sí. Bueno, por los que no conozcan a AMEXHI todavía, voy a volar un poquito sobre quién es AMEXHI, quién soy yo y qué hacemos, y después voy a entrar acerca de nuestra agenda. Bueno, yo soy Raymundo Piñones, Raymundo Piñones de la Cabada, director general de la asociación. La Asociación de Compañías Petroleras es, pues como se imaginarán, consecuencia de la reforma energética. Nace en 2015 y reunimos a 45 operadores de exploración y producción. Yo soy ingeniero petrolero. Nunca había trabajado en petróleo en México hasta hace como 5 años. Antes de esto estuve trabajando en perforación. Dije que les iba a hablar en inglés y ahorita que llegue esto voy a tener mis notas en inglés. Bueno, I worked in drilling mostly in the Persian Gulf and the North Sea. Eventually they asked me to come to Mexico and eventually they offered me this job, so here I am. Moving on, what we are and what we do is really, we're the association of oil companies, no different from any other industry association. And what we do is promote the development of the hydrocarbon upstream industry, only upstream, only exploration and production companies, under high standards of transparency, efficiency, sustainability, and safety. And we do this through engaging with different stakeholders, not only government. In the beginning, it was mostly government, but also academia, other associations, civil society. And these are our members. So I didn't get to say hi to some of them. Petrofac, Jawar, they're with us. And those good companies. As you can see, Pemex is one of them. Pemex is a founding member of the association. We have currently, I believe, 45 members from 19 nationalities. I believe 37 of them have signed a contract. So most of them now have a day job. And the collection of these companies operate in more or less 90 countries. And this is part of what makes AMEXHI, I would like to believe, is strong. And that's what makes AMEXHI relevant towards the government and towards other associations, the fact that we really bring international practice to the table. At many conversations, regulators or authorities ask us, how is this done in Norway? How is this done in Colombia? Well, we can easily come up with that. But well, that's who we are, and what is what we propose. I'm going to start with what we propose and then how we got there. So, what we propose, and this is our message always to particularly now with the change of administration, we want the industry to be developed under these guiding principles, which is constancy or consistency. This is in rounds and processes. This is to reduce the risk that can be reduced. Oil companies take on a lot of risk. We want to mitigate the risk that can be mitigated, and that is the one that lives on paper. It allows companies to plan ahead on their resources. And also we want consistency on the interpretation of the laws and consistency on the laws themselves and the regulation. We want transparency. We tend to say that transparency is the thing that we get requested the most from civil society. And it is one of the keys to have a real license to operate, not only in Mexico, anywhere. And And this transparency is not only that we publish what we spend money on, what we pay to the government, that the government reports what they do with that money. It is also articulated through the existence of checks and balances in the regulatory system. The fact that nobody in the regulatory system is able to make decisions on their own, it increases a little bit our regulatory burden, yes, but it's a good trade-off. Transparency also means being able to have a healthy dialogue with authorities, a healthy and transparent dialogue and public dialogue with authorities. So everything we do is through the consultation councils, through the regulatory improvement systems, through the very page of Rondas Mexico. The fourth thing we look for, I went on a different order, sorry. Competition. This means on one end to make sure that companies that try to get projects ongoing in Mexico play on an even field, and that the real variables that dictate who gets these projects awarded is the execution capacity, which is what CNH qualifies you. CNH requires you to have certain technical experience and certain financial capacity, and the willingness to take risk. Transparency, and competition also allows Mexico to ensure that the projects are executed by the company that will maximize its value for the Mexicans. The idea that, I believe that nobody can argue that a system with 50 or 500 companies will be more efficient than a system with one company. You can call that one company Statoil or Pemex or Exxon. 50 companies will always do a better job. And finally, knowledge, or what we call a knowledge economy. That means to get knowledge and science in the center of all decisions. We would like to think that we do it, that the industry does that, but also it has to be with the policymakers setting an example on getting knowledge in the center of their decisions. So these are the guiding principles. We believe that if the industry develops under these principles, we'll define, and I'll go to the background of this in a minute. And if somebody asks me, but specifically, what is what you propose? Not only guiding principles. Well, we came up with 10 ideas. As I mentioned, I'll go into how we got there. And I think you can read it, maybe. And this is where I have my notes in Spanish, sorry. This is annual rounds to have predictability, so companies are able to know how to fit the Mexico opportunities in their yearly processes. Interagency or interregulator coordination. This means that there's so many information that we tend to have to provide to several different offices. One of the member associations of the member companies of AMEXHI was saying that there are some regulators that have more certified bylaws of their company than them, because every time they go to present a paper, they have to bring a copy. Regulatory autonomy. This means that we need regulators that are not subject to the ongoing policy, the ongoing administrations, and also that they're technically capable. A new plan for infrastructure development. We believe that what has been achieved in awarding contracts, awarding projects for development of the upstream industry, there's a lot that the infrastructure sector can learn from that. I believe one of the gentlemen from the last panel mentioned that we need to keep the entry barriers at a minimum possible. We need the most competition to ensure, again, that the projects get the most value for the Mexicans and for Mexico. We need to, bloody hell, I took a different order, to incentivize the development of Pemex. Everybody in AMEXHI understands, believes at its core that Pemex needs to end up in a better position thanks to these new rules. We need security. That means physical, but also security of investments. We need rule of law. That is on a micro level and on a macro level. We need to have a strategy for the development of unconventional resources. That is where half of the prospective resources of Mexico lie. And we have the advantage of being located next to the great producer of unconventional resources. There's a lot of economies of scale that we get to take advantage of. And finally, we repeat the knowledge economy to make sure that that Mexico has the human capital ready for the industry. So, but now I go to the background. How do we got there? How did we come up with these principles and these ideas of activities? And it was through this. If you have not read it, I don't think you will. It's 178 pages. But there's also an executive summary that is only 25. So if you go to amexhi.org, you can download it in English or Spanish. And it's our plan, it's our analysis and plan for the industry. We got to this document through really more than a year of work in conjunction with some of our consultants. We first interviewed all the members of AMEXHI, or at least those that wanted to answer. We sent them surveys. Then our consultants went and met with some 50-ish industry leaders, government, not government, academia. Then we had some discussion lunches with some of these guys. And in the end, our consultants put everything on the blender, and we came up with this. It has and it also helped that the International Energy Agency a couple of years ago came up with the Mexico Energy Outlook, which crunched the numbers for us. So we also worked with them. They provided some of the economic analysis. And the first question that one of the first questions I get often is, why did you choose 2040? It's twofold answer, really. The half of the answer is because the agency did, and it made life a lot easier for us. But the bottom line is that if you consider, and you all know the times of the industry, if you consider how our industry is developed, whatever we define today, whatever is done today or not done, when the real impact of those decisions is going to be seen in full scale, it's around 25 years from now. This is more or less the times of the industry. You know, that's why our contracts are sometimes 30, 35, 40 years long. Sometimes we don't get one penny back, and we do invest a lot of money for 12 years until we get first oil in the most complex projects. In the least complex projects, it might be 4 years. Still, very long time to start seeing your some returns. And that brings us to how do we got here? And we believe this has been a 30-year-old conversation, really 25-year-old conversation. So the corollary of worrying today about how the future is gonna look in 2040 is that whatever is happening today is really a consequence of what was done or not done 25 or 30 years ago. So what happened 25 or 30 years ago? This happened. There has been several attempts to reform the sector. The sector Well, it started with the decision of Mexico of joining the global economy. And there has been reforms in 93, 95, 2008, and finally 2013. And from 2013, it's where we really step on the gas, right? And everything that we know happened. Round 1.1, blah, 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 all the way to round 3.1, which I'm not sure if it's here. Yes, it's here. Yeah. So that's the point. And this debate, this 30-year-old debate, the central premise has always been the resources are property of the nation. However, that remains constant today. The difference is that now the Mexico gets to choose who will develop these resources. And who develops these resources is the company that offers the best conditions to the Mexican state. That's why we say, with many competitors, it maximizes the value for the Mexican economy. And so, in the center, that was the center of the discussion. This discussion, 25-year discussion, ended up defining these 4 priorities: to create a system with checks and balances, set transparency and competition at the center of the processes, increase the revenue to the state, of course, but also increase not only revenue, but the value creation for Mexicans, for Mexico. And we ended up, maybe I'm stating the obvious, hopefully not. We ended up with something that allows investment to come not only from state companies, but also from private companies. It maximizes value for Mexicans, but maybe most important, it multiplies, maybe exponentially, the execution capacity of projects. And that is through the pure logic of not having only one source of investments, but also the ability to bring companies that are specialized. We know no company can do everything. No company can be the best at everything. We know that Pemex has always been very successful, well, not always, since the 70s, on shallow water. Before that, was successful in onshore. There's companies that are specialized in unconventionals. There's companies that are specialized in mature fields. And this allows these companies that are niche companies to come to Mexico and develop efficiently resources. Also, when we go back to the checks and balances, a bunch of new agencies that we have to interact with were created. Some of the ones that are not there is Secretaría de Economía, Conagua and CEMAR. These are not specialized for us, that's why they're not there. However, we do answer to all of them. And the intention, again, is that through not centralizing decisions in one person or agency, we, the companies, but also the society, have certainty on the processes. So what was this? I'm going to stop 1 second on CNH and ASEA, just because the relevance of ASEA and the situation they live in right now. ASEA, while CNH with the reform was strengthened as an independent regulator with independent budget and technical independence from the executive power, ASEA is not. So today, that's one of the risks we see ahead. CNH regulates us on the operational continuity and the efficiency of our operations, and ASEA regulates our health, safety, security, and environment performance. So this is in line, this gap, or the need to fix this gap is in line with the OECD suggestions also, which really, what what we require is that our regulators have the capacity to be technically capable and able politically to regulate us, taking care of the interest of the nation, not the interest of the administrations. And that is one of our concerns today. So this is very briefly just to mention where you can find information about our contracts. I get way too many questions about, this is all of them from people not in the industry, but suggesting that we, as oil companies, do not publish our results, do not that our processes are somehow secretive. The fact is that pretty much all the information that we provide to the government is available to anybody in Mexico or abroad through these websites. And finally, one of the, we do have in our publication, in our Agenda 2040, we have an analysis based on the International Energy Agency's study of how could Mexico look like in 2040. And these are the numbers of the agency. This is the production. Of course, as you can see, we're already below that, right? The study came in 2015, and the decline curve has been steeper than expected. But still, imagine for a moment we're in 2015. These are the scenarios ahead. The dotted line represents what they call the old policies scenario, and the gray shaded area represents what they call the new policies scenario, continuing with the policies as were implemented by the energy reform. And this, just so everybody knows, the Mexico Energy Outlook is also available online. It's one of the few publications from the International Energy Agency that are complete, that the whole publication is free. I don't know what kind of guidelines they follow for that, but if you look for Mexico Energy Outlook IEA, you'll find it. And the difference, as they reckon, of the two scenarios is, the first obvious ones, the income to the state, the investment through the investment sources, but some less obvious or that require a little bit more number crunching. They recognize a difference in GDP towards 2040 of 4% and an accumulated loss of GDP of $1 trillion beyond the dólares, millón de millones. So, and finally, yeah, I'm doing fine. This is the other question I get often. I would like to think that AMEXHI has somehow played a role on this, and is what kind of results can we see today of the energy reform? The first answer to somebody that is not from the industry is explaining the times of the industry, and what we just said, that for the complex projects, it might take 10 years to get some of the so-called renta petrolera. That doesn't mean that we will get the return on investment. That will take a lot longer than the 10 years. But despite that, some results can be seen already. I was about to take this out because I stole this from Juan Carlos Cepeda, and I believe he used this. He used it yesterday. The increased in investment on seismic. This is research. This is pure investment in research that has happened over the last few years, despite of Mexico having been a fair consumer of seismic data. During the past few years, these numbers have tripled and quadrupled in the different types of seismic. We have had, and I cannot take credit for that, Mexico has had a lot of success in this offshore, and we're still to find the the right recipe to replicate this onshore. The other one is the exploratory activity. This is also stolen from Juan Carlos, sorry. So if you can see in the graph, the best period in Mexico's history is 2001 to 2005, when more or less 18 exploratory wells were drilled every year. And that was for a brief period. During the period 2018 to 2021, we're expecting 26. And those are only exploratory. If theories are confirmed, obviously more exploration will be required. And if theories are confirmed, maybe more exploration will be required. And if theories are confirmed, then maybe you have something that can be developed. Also on the results, I'm sure that Ivan Samandrea has been here already, right? So we have already some discoveries or extension of previously known fields. The one that is a discovery from scratch is Sama. Those are the data available for Sama, but it's expected that it will have somewhere between 600 and 900 million barrels of recoverable oil. Those are still, there's no reserves in that. Those still, there's more exploration to be done in order to have the certainty of having reserves. Pemex has signed 3 association agreements, three so-called farm-outs, 3 on in the water and 2 onshore. We had Cheiron here from Cárdenas Mora in the previous panel. And this is objectively something that is good for Pemex. It's good for Mexico and it's good for the companies. It will. This is an example of bringing companies that are specialized in handling this type of projects. And finally, and we try to be very careful on this because it cannot fix expectations to the future. This is how the numbers look like. Numbers from the government. These are not our numbers, we're working on our own numbers. On government takes of previous rounds. So far, the average is somewhere around 74-ish or 60 to 80%, and this is something good. Yeah, that's it. That's where I stop, and I'll be very happy to try to answer some questions or receive tomatoes.
Thank you so much, Raymundo. Are there any questions? See there a question? Yes.
Hello, Raymundo.
Hola.
Can you hear me? Yes, now. Hi, my name is Cristina Luna from Nalco Champion. And the question we have is, are there any opportunities for the local suppliers or vendors to interact with the AMEXHI association?
Yes, it's a somehow limited window because as association, we have to comply with laws, with our own internal conflict of interest policies. So we have created, but we are aware that there's a need, and there's an obvious advantage to use the AMEXHI forums to interact with industry vendors. So we opened something that we call the marketplace, and every month we have a technical committee meeting. Some 30-ish companies join us every month, and we invite 2 or 3 companies that provide similar services every time to these meetings. We understand it's obvious, it's convenient for both, right? To open this space. However, we have the companies that join us here go through a process, internal processes, nothing bad, inside the technical committee to make sure that they are of interest to most of the present companies. So yes, we are already taken for July, August, and September. So we take, you please get on the queue, and we will be happy to open the space for you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, then I have a question.
Yes.
So how will the relocation of Senair to another state affect the private sector, and what has been the feedback of the operators about it?
Honestly, we have not given it a thought. We will have to travel more. We will, Interjet will have to open more flights, I guess.
Oh, isn't that great in Mexico? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, well then, thank you so much, Raymundo,
My
for
pleasure.
your time. We will go over to the coffee break right now, so if you have any other questions, you can also ask Raymundo. I hope you stick around for a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.